Hello everyone, welcome back to Train Simulator 2020 here on Donner Pass, continuing to modernize the route. And this little intro bit here, I'm just proving to you guys that I was able to swap track out successfully. I think in the comments and in the forums I was asking people, hey, how do I swap track using the RW tools? And for whatever reason, it wasn't listed in the user manual on the latest updated version. And so thankfully someone on the forums was able to get me the correct documentation. So I was able to swap the track out to the Stevens Pass wooden ties and track asset, I guess you can say. I'll probably make a video down the line on how to do that, so you can do that yourself. Here I did continue the trenching, and as you see there, I continued that out on the west side of Reno, and it looks really good. Really impressed by that. Here I'm just kind of showing you the track continuing. As you can see here, you can see the markings and where the old track was and where I put my new set of rails. And it was something I noticed just kind of looking at the route and also watching videos online of people playing on Donner Pass, and I just noticed the elevation was just really bizarre and weird. The grade changes a lot. It goes from like flat to like a 1.1% grade, and I'm like, why is it like that? And a lot of this area too, if you go to Street View, and go along the rails, it's so out of whack. I don't know. I don't know what was going in the minds of the group that Microsoft or whoever created this route, because this is a pretty old route. I don't know if it's the same group of guys from Dovetail Games or whatever. I mean, obviously a lot of the newer routes, they're way more accurate and stuff like this. So, but yeah, just this area shouldn't be full of like pine trees. Like, that is the one thing I hate right now, and that's just deleting pine trees, because this is supposed to be a deserty area. That portion is like very deserty. You're not going to see pine trees or even trees in general till you get closer to the mountains, higher elevations and such. So there's going to be a lot of correcting going on, but as you can see, back there, I thought I wasn't going to be touching a lot of the rails, but it seems like I'm going to be working on a lot of it as we go. Thankfully, most of Donner is pretty much just scenery and rails. The only exception here is being in Reno and around Sparks Yard and stuff, where there's a ton of buildings and traffic and such like that. So this is definitely going to take a while, but I think as soon as I move out of Reno, move west, we should be good to go. So I got a lot of the trenching done, which is nice. I did find that embankment spline, which you guys saw beside I guess you could say, our concrete wall there along the sides of the rails. I think it's a Chicago embankment spline, and it's adjustable too. And so here you guys can see me laying that down. Also, you saw back there just adding this tunnel thing just to kind of cover up the rails as well, because there's an area where it's covered up. It's kind of like a park kind of, I guess, center square in Reno, and they have a lot of that covered up as well, probably just so the diesel exhaust doesn't accumulate in that area and whatnot. But yeah, look at this embankment spline. I didn't know this existed, but you can actually adjust the width of the embankment spline, which is really cool. And especially in this area where the grassy portion of the spline was bleeding into the concrete wall. And so I was just adjusting that, and I mean, holy cow, I don't know. I can't believe I haven't discovered that asset before. But I'm just showing you guys there, the process I did, beforehand. I did a lot off camera and in order to do this build, I realize I have to do a lot off camera, otherwise it's not going to get done, even as of recording this. So this is October 30th. This will probably be uploaded October 31st for Halloween. Happy Halloween for everyone anyways. But I did a lot actually today and the past few days off camera, just deleting assets. That's the biggest one, deleting assets, because I'm really redoing all of it. Like I mentioned with the pine trees, the biggest thing is deleting pine trees, because it's not realistic at all. And then also just deleting some houses that just don't look realistic at all and replacing that with Stevens Pass or Chicago house assets and things like that. So yeah, but I will and will continue to show you guys stuff that I do around the track. So like obviously this road that just goes along it, it's just continuing to show you guys progression, especially this area right here. Off camera, I deleted a lot of those houses you see over there as well. And even in between a lot of these clips, I spent like a good 20 minutes just deleting road assets and things like that, and trees and bushes and things like that. So yeah, it's, again, I didn't think I'd be doing so much, but I'm already going so deep into just redoing everything that I might as well just redo everything and not, worry too much about, am I going to touch this, am I going to touch that, and pretty much just deleting everything and rebuilding from scratch. Just like you would if you were to create a fantasy route or anything like that, from nothing. You're pretty much rebuilding from nothing. The only extra step for me is that I have to delete. So that does take some more time, but thankfully deleting doesn't take, thinking, just click on a prop, select a bunch of props, and delete them. So that is that. Let's get back on track, or back on the road, I should say. That was horrible pun. Anyways, we're talking about bridges here. And you might notice that the original roads I laid down through there, the concrete wall kind of goes into it. And I did a second bridge here, and that first bridge, I raised the road, and just so the road doesn't bleed through that concrete, the top of the concrete wall. But then I just thought, well, what's the point of me spending all this time to use, these what is that called? The embankment, the elevation, points there, and adjusting the road every single time. That's just a time killer. It just wastes a lot of time. There's no point in doing that, especially if you're just driving a train underneath. You're not really paying attention to those small details. So I quickly went through, did all of those bridges, and you'd have some of that bleeding of the concrete wall, but I think it's good enough. I think it's fine. It won't be, it'd be noticeable, but it's not that important. Here I'm showing you guys, so maybe some of you guys might know this. There's got to be an asset there for, when you go under tunnels and stuff, you have the echo, of the train, like, noises and horns and stuff. And there's this like occlusion volume thingy-mabobber that I thought if you put it under the bridge, and over the rails and such, and then when you drive under that, you get this echo sound. And so I've been trying, I think that one was a Pacific Surfliner prop, and then I tried a Pacific Surfliner. Or did I just say the Chicago and Pacific Surfline? I think I just said Pacific Surfline twice. I don't know. Anyways, but I tried both of them, ran trains through there, nothing was happening. So I'm gonna have to go into the editor for other routes and just see how the those tunnel echo sounds are created or whatnot. I don't think it's a sound asset. It's definitely some other side asset. So. Anyways, I'll continue to work on that. Obviously, there's a baseball stadium over there, which in the base route, it's a bunch of buildings. So we spiced things up, and I think that was like Anaheim Stadium or something from Pacific Surfliner. So I put that there. I had to scale it, which kind of sucked. But, it still looks good. It still looks like a full-scale baseball stadium there in the corner. The next thing is also another bridge over here. This is a really cool bridge. I like that, how it goes over both the northbound rail over there and then the trenched rail going under Reno. If you go to that little cul-de-sac over there where that dead end is, and you kind of go in the same position that I was in, it looked pretty close and pretty realistic. That's the one thing I love about doing this, is going to Google Maps and just kind of comparing that to what we have here in the route. There's just, it's a great base. If you've never been there in person, Google Maps is such a, cool thing to have. And it's cool to have people, that live there too, to get pictures. I bet you that guy that messaged me in the forums about taking pictures. I'm sure you're still watching this series, and yes, I will definitely contact you when I'm ready for pictures. I'll probably ask for pictures, I think, where you said, you live closer to, I think up closer to like the Truckee area or one of those places. I forgot where. But yeah, I'll definitely love for pictures and whatnot. So yeah, I worked on that bridge, and it turned out pretty cool. And then here's a parking lot. You can see I'm using parking lot splines. But after a while, I thought, again, and just like the bridges, I'm like, well, how often are players going to be looking at this from above? I mean, if you're in third person, yes, you may see that, but even if you're in first person just driving through, you're not really going to pay attention. And thankfully, I found this parking lot from Pacific Surfliner and just laid it down. Good enough. The only concern I have is that, again, well, I don't know. I take that back. I was going to say something about the snow and how, like, yeah, like, if you change it to, like, winter conditions, a lot of these props will put snow on them. I think that's why there's a lot of, like, pine trees in most of the route and stuff, because you can't really differentiate between, oh, one area is going to have snow and one area is not going to have snow. And I'm sure Reno gets cold enough to where it does snow once in a while. You know, they live, you know, close to the mountain ranges and such, but you know, who knows? It still seems pretty deserty and stuff, so I really doubt it. But so I kind of thought of that with the parking lot. I'm like, yeah, because I know a lot of these roads too, when it becomes winter, it will change to like snow-covered roads and whatnot. So that's kind of like the only issue I think I have with it. I think I don't know. I'll have to play with, you know, do tricks and stuff with it. It might be a thing where if you switch it to, or the route will never be played in winter. It might be like in the spring and the fall. I'll color in snow or however snow works. I don't really know how snow works, but that's kind of like also my mindset through a lot of this too. It's like, okay, what type of props do I use? Because there's a lot of Pacific Surfliner props that look really cool, but then, you know, Pacific Surfliner is a Southern California route where they don't really get much snow. So yeah, if you guys have no idea what I'm talking about, whatever. My mind's just kind of going off. And there's a lot to think about when, you know, going through and putting assets down and things like that, especially seasonal, you know, weather conditions and things like that. So you might notice the transition was a little bit different there, and that's because, well, this was another recording session. And I'd like to point out that all of this footage together, well, not all of it, because I cut a lot of it, but minus the cuts and minus the, I guess you say shortening of like time, or like time stretch or whatever, it was roughly like 3.5 hours of footage. I spent one day, recorded about an hour and 15 minutes, and I'm like, okay, this is not enough content. I got to do more. So the next day I got on, and I did more. And even this section right here, I think this is also like 2 videos combined. So yeah, I just wanted to get a lot done on camera, you know, not waste, you know, camera time, video time and whatnot. So yeah, welcome to the next part of, I guess you could say day 2 of what I worked on. That's the cool thing about a speed build, but it does take a lot of time. Again, very time consuming. We are jumping around like always. We are closer back to Sparks Yard, and I'm working on this kind of, I don't know, this city street, if I can speak. And there's also a little like cement quarry place here. I forget what that place was called, but there are some cool like cement like building assets and things like that, conveyors and stuff like that. So just kind of potzing around the area. What's cool is that, you know, that's the one thing I don't like about the editor. You can switch to a pictured mode where it does show you the assets, but it takes a long time to load. It's not like the trains editor where, you know, those assets load up like almost immediately and you get to see what they look like and things like that. So I just kind of wish there was a better preview of assets and things like that. So you're just kind of scrolling through assets and clicking, and sometimes you click on something that, you know, looks good, or you change your mind about something. Like this right here is these, you know, transformers and things like that. What is this called? Substation, yes. Honestly, I shouldn't have kept the previous one because I like the fences in that one, so I may rechange that. But, you know, sometimes you just click around and you find something better, or you find something and you're like, hey, this may actually work in another section. So, but again, yeah, was just the one thing I don't like about this, is just like, it takes forever to find the right assets. And I think for me, especially in this area, I found like a good set of like, you know, city stores and things like that. And it might be something where I copy and paste a lot of these buildings over and over again. Not too many people are really going to notice that. Which is a good thing. And even if people do notice it, your biggest concern is focusing on driving your locomotive and things like that, and getting your job done. So I don't really care about if I'm repeating assets. I'm doing my best to mix things up as well, just kind of change things up. But there will be a repetition of assets. It's like that for any route. It's not a down to earth kind of game. It's a train simulator game. You're just going to be on the rails and things like that, and focusing on getting your job done and such. So, but yeah, you can see you're just using a lot of these assets. Actually, I think a bunch of these assets are Donner Pass assets. I'm not too big of a fan of them, especially like the houses you see in the distance. I don't like how they look. I don't like the roofs of them. They just look really old, dark, and gloomy and things like that. But they do have some good, city street buildings and retail stores and things like that. So I thought that was cool. And also I found pretty much like exact like cement, what do they call it? I guess cement buildings and things like that with conveyors. They almost lined up perfectly on Google Maps, which was nice. So just kind of adding onto this place, adding some cement mixers, and then adding some people. This is something I talked about, I think, in a previous video, and something that Approach Medium talks about all the time on his Trains A New Era and Trains 2019 builds, is just making the routes feel alive. And I'm surprised there isn't more like people assets and things like that. There actually are a good amount with the 5 or so routes that I have combined with this build. So there are a bunch to select, but that's the one thing that makes the route feel like, it has life, it's not dead, is people, and just having people sit there and talk. Who cares if they're gonna be there forever? It seems like they'd be forever standing. They're not going anywhere. But just once you drive by them, it just seems like, hey, there's things going on, there's cool things going on. Even that little forklift right there, that is an actual animated forklift. So you catch that when you drive by, again, it just makes the map feel alive and whatnot. And just adding more details and things like that just really brings out, it's just eye candy. It brings out a lot, which is really cool. So you can see I find these, I think they're actually like, well, I don't know, cement is kind of like gravel or rocks or whatever. So, but you got those gravel piles there. We're back to using these fences. I think these are my favorite fences. There's something with a lot of the spline. Oh, there's no splines that look like this fence asset, which kind of annoys me. I don't know why. And a lot of them too, there's something about the texturing of them as well. And you're driving along them, like you can't really see them unless you're right next to them, and then like once you pass them, they kind of like disappear. I think it's just because of the skinniness, I guess, of that spline or whatever. But like these splines are nice, like having concrete walls and things like that. And this is another area too, where if you go to Google Maps, I try the best I can to make it look like Street View. I think I spent most of this time in Street View and just kind of twirled around at the crossing gate, and just kind of compared what I saw in there and compared it to this, adding some telephone poles, because that's also important as well. Telephone poles is the same thing with splines. I think the spline telephone poles are a little bit more flexible. You could do a little bit more with them. However, if you make a mistake and it comes time to delete it, you have to delete every single thing. You have to delete the pole, you have to delete all the wires and things like that. So there are some good telephone pole props, just like this one. And again, it really brings life out onto the rails and stuff. Here's, I guess, it's not really an Easter egg because I'm showing it, but this is Pacific Surfliner billboards. I think the other side says #WeAreRailFans, and I may just place a lot of them around the route and whatnot, get some Pacific Surfliner into it. And now we're in the trees. Yay. I think a lot of this is Stevens Pass trees, which are awesome. All the G-Track stuff is amazing. I don't know what... okay. The G-Track's routes are incredible. There's a lot of locomotives I don't like. Like a lot of the steam locomotives are G-Track steam locomotives, I believe, like the Berkshires and things like that. And those aren't realistic at all. But they do a great job with scenery stuff, and I give them full credit for that. Their trees look amazing, but yeah, just kind of rescaling these. These trees really look out of place, especially because I think of the ground texture I have, so I need to add more like dirt textures and things like that. Yeah, adding bushes here along the highway as well. Gosh, I was gonna say something about like trees and things. Oh yeah, I was gonna talk about like the paint and whatnot on the ground. And this goes previously to what I was talking about with like the terrain tools and stuff. The one thing I really wish Dovetail Games did and changed about the editor was just the grid layout was a little bit more precise. Or maybe they added like more grids and things like that, smaller grids, so you can get more precision with like your terrain and your painting and things like that. As well as just because, I mean, if you go to the Trains editor, they have so many different options for, you know, the painting tools and stuff. And I really wish Train Simulator had something like that as well. So that's what I was going to mention about that. So yes, trees at the moment look kind of out of place, but I'll be sure to, you know, make it blend in pretty well. And then just adding more road splines and assets around this quarry right here, which quarry, the cement business, I should say. And I think we'll jump back to the little building underneath the highway. I don't know what that building is. I don't know if it's like a storage building. What I like honestly about the default route is that building underneath the highway there, it was there. That's the same exact building asset that was in the original route. All I did with that is I kind of changed the size a little bit of it and whatnot and just fit it closer to what it is on the maps. But I just find it funny that building is, you know, that's probably like one of the most realistic things, other than a lot of the buildings in the city of Reno that were actually similar to what was there in Google Maps. So I thought that was funny. But yeah, it's more putting assets down and just kind of, you know, hey, I found an asset. This might look good here. You know, plop that here, plop that in other places and whatnot. There's no right or wrong really about doing it. It's just like any other artwork. Just kind of place stuff down and, you know, just, you know, make it your own. Make it, you know, again, I'm going with what's on Google Maps and what I see around the area, but then to a point, you have to make it your own. You have to make it unique and be creative with it as well, especially for a lot of modelers out there, you know, who have model train layouts and things like that. You know, they model it to a real life, you know, place, but obviously their space, you know, and the time that they have, they can't make it exact what it's like in real life. So you just gotta, you know, just be creative and whatnot. So, but yeah, I'm pretty happy with this area. Cinematics are coming up here just very shortly, and same thing here. You know, I'm just finding props and I'm like, hey, I remember this gate, you know, so you just kind of put it down and just, you know, I don't know, it's cool. I do enjoy it. I do enjoy it a lot, and I continue to enjoy these gate props and things like that. But yeah, we're coming up to the end of the cinematics. Again, I did do a lot off camera, and I don't know what my next recording session is going to be like, but I'm just kind of working on the houses around and just kind of the scenery that's very far away from the track. So you guys will probably see that in the next episode. But thank you guys again so much for watching. Feel free to subscribe. If you like the video, be sure to like it. Subscribe for more Train Simulator 2020 content. And I will see you guys in episode 6 of Modernizing Donner Pass.